Welcome. Welcome to Manitoba Women in Tech. My name is Whitney Morgan, and I am the Director of Operations with North Forge. Before we begin, North Forge would like to acknowledge that it is located on Treaty 1 territory, the ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Ashininuk, Dakota Yote, Denisilan, and Noetiwak nations, and is a homeland of the Red River Métis. Northern Manitoba includes lands that were and are the ancestral lands of the Inuit. We respect the treaties that were made on these territories. We acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past, and we dedicate ourselves to move forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. I am very excited to be on stage with you today. So as you noticed, previously we're in a different setting. So we were in a networking setting with Remo, and now I'm on the big stage. So all of your mics and all of your videos have been turned off. But on the right-hand side of the screen, you're going to see chat, participants, Q&A, and polls. So as we get going, and I will say this in a little bit as well, any questions that you have, please feel free to put in the Q&A or the chat, and I will keep looking at them as we go forward. So for those of you who don't know about Manitoba Women in Tech, it is due to the combined forces of New Media Manitoba. I saw Tina in the room earlier. Tech Manitoba, Shaylin is here, and North Forge, and we are here to support and share experiences, applaud accomplishments, and promote tech activities in a safe, gender inclusive, and judgment-free environment. When you have a moment, please take a look at our code of conduct on our meetup page. And in essence, we're going to ask that you be respectful, be kind, and support each other. And we do encourage you to review it. I'll be able to pop it into the chat a little bit later as well. We host regular get-togethers every month, either virtually or in person, for anyone working in and with tech who would like to meet other women and folks working in tech. We regularly survey all of our attendees to ensure that the content we provide and the format of our gatherings work for the majority of those who wish to attend. The format today is a little bit different. In the past, we have had a presentation come up, and today we are going to welcome Michelle Kuly, Principal and CEO of Blueprint and co-founder of Nearlake, for I'm going to quote, fireside chat, though I probably should have had some little candle or something going to have that fireside component. And Michelle is going to chat about her journey of navigating technology, entrepreneurship, and leadership in a rapidly shifting landscape. But before I welcome her onto the stage, I want to share her bio with you because it is amazing. Michelle often jokes that she's raising 4 children. She has 2 daughters and 2 businesses. And for more than a decade, Michelle has been the forefront of helping nonprofit organizations navigate change. As a founder of Blueprint, she has built a consultancy known for turning complex challenges into clear, actionable strategies, ensuring that strategic planning drives real and lasting impact in communities. In 2024, Michelle co-founded Nearlake, an AI-powered planning platform built specifically for nonprofits and small teams, and is set to launch in fall of 2025. Nearlake simplifies strategic planning by combining technology with Blueprint's proven facilitation methods, helping mission-driven teams create living and adaptable strategies. Designed to work the way small teams do, collaborative, flexible, and impact-driven, Nearlake ensures organizations can spend less time planning and more time making differences in their communities. Michelle is a past chair and a board member of Manitoba Chambers of Commerce, who initiated the 30-50 challenge to ensure 30 to 50% of leadership roles go to women and equity-deserving groups. She remains committed to rethinking how organizations collaborate, ensuring they have the tools and strategies needed to build stronger, more resilient communities. Now, with that, Michelle, please, if you would pop on your mic and your camera, please join me on stage. Hello.
Hello, Whitney. It's good to be here with you and with all of you here today. Thanks for joining. I'm pretty pumped to connect. And we need the fireside crackle going in the background.
I know. I didn't. I should have got that video on demand. The fire channel on.
That's right.
Next time. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us. We have had this, everyone. We have had this on the books since September of 2024. And a good thing, because Michelle, since then you have been crazy, crazy busy. And your bio says you have 4 children. So you got 2 girls, 2 wonderful daughters, and 2 businesses. So me saying that things have been crazy, you have to balance motherhood, entrepreneurship. How do you make sure everyone gets what they need?
Sometimes not very well, Whitney, if I'm being really honest. But I do my best. And, it's funny that you should say that we booked this back in September, because certainly time management is something that's always forefront on my mind from a very practical tool sense, but also just like from more of a philosophical sense and how I approach that. But I was actually just chatting with my mom this morning before I started the day. I call her every morning to connect, and it made me reflect on a conversation I had with her actually when I had my first daughter, and that was a real time of change for me. I had been working in a professional services firm and went on mat leave, and really felt like there wasn't a path there for me. And so was thinking about whether it was time to start my own business. And so there were late nights where I was doing a midnight feeding of my daughter and breastfeeding and responding to RFPs at the same time. And I remember a phone call with my mom where I was just like, Mom, I can't get everything done. And she was like, yeah, you can't get everything done. And I think those words have really stayed with me all through, the last almost 15 years that I've been doing this work. So now, over the pandemic, I had another daughter. So I have a 13-year-old and a 3-year-old. And I sort of have a business and a daughter every decade. So, started my first business around the same time as my first daughter was built. the around the time I built my first daughter, and then starting the second business, Near Lake, after having Eve. Certainly managing my time just is really important, and also knowing what I can and can't do. So I rely a lot on my family and on my team to do the things that they're great at, so that I can focus on what I'm great at. I'm working really hard on. I've always been a hard worker. I learned that also from my mom, but I'm learning how to work smarter, and I think that's sort of where I'm at. Sometimes I do a great job, and sometimes I don't. But I really focus on making promises I can keep, and making commitments that I can keep, and giving myself the tools and the space to say no when I can't. Because when you say no, it's so you can say yes to the right things. And so, right now I have a 3-year-old and a 13-year-old, and it's a super interesting time of life for both of them. And that's really important to me. So really doubling down on having some boundaries. And for me also, that means making sure I'm taking the time for myself to take care of myself, because they're all much happier when I'm doing that too. So it's a balancing act, and sometimes I'm better at it than others. But that's where I'm at.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned at the end about, taking care of yourself, because without yourself, I mean, you have four children, right? You need to take care of yourself, and being able to give yourself grace and the ability to say no when it doesn't align with what you need.
And there's just some non-negotiables. I've worked really hard last year, honestly, when we were doing the initial testing. I mean, Whitney, we spent a lot of time together. I was working flat out, and I did rely on my family and team a lot. There were just days when I would get home and as sure as I think many of us do, and I would just be lying on the floor, just sort of recovering. And that's okay for a little while, but it's not okay in the long term for anyone. And so, these days I'm focused on having a block of time every day that's at least an hour that is really protected time that I'm just spending on what I need personally, whether that's moving my body or doing a little bit of writing or just like drinking coffee for a really long time. But that's definitely helping me feel more capable of making good decisions, because when you're not balancing those things well, you don't make the best decisions. And so I've certainly learned over the time I have been running two businesses and raising daughters that that's about modeling the right thing to your teams, to team and family.
You mentioned having the team that's good at feedback from you there, Michelle. There we go. You mentioned having team that is allowing them to be good at what they're doing, right? And so you have Blueprint, and now we have Nearlake. So you brought on a few team members that are really big in the AI side of things. So you spotted that trend with your team early on and founded Nearlake to bring that into strategic planning and into, you know, with Blueprint and transforming that very traditional in-person process around strategic planning into tech-powered tool. Can you tell me a little bit about the journey of embracing that disruption? Because that's huge, right? To go from a very in-person process to AI, right? Especially, you know, like early adopting of it. Tell me about that disruption. And then have you had any kind of tough lessons or aha moments? And I'm sure there are along the way.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sure you were in the room, Whitney, for some of those tough moments. So folks, just so you know, when we were launching, well, not even, I mean, it was pre-Nearlake launch, really. It was in early pilot testing where we were sort of like, I don't know, I'll describe our like really initial modeling of Nearlake as like attaching like a couple of paper clips to like a PowerPoint deck to like, you know, some squeaky toys and like trying to figure it out and then plugging it into the wall and like being like, does this work? That's sometimes how it felt. But yeah, it was challenging, continues to be. Like, I'll say it's pretty hilarious. The running joke in my group of friends is that like Michelle owns a tech company because I'm the least technical person that any of them know, and same thing in my family. Like a late adopter to every technology trend. Like, you know, I'm still learning how to use LinkedIn, but I'm an entrepreneur, and so I've never been afraid of a new path. And I think what really appealed to me, or what I saw in AI, and like this is a direct result of like early connection with Matt Dirks, my co-founder. What I saw and sensed was not like a new, just a new tool, but it was a transformation of approach and process. And frankly, that was a problem I saw in strat planning for the last 15 years. Like, it's a big lift to build a plan, and then plans sit on a shelf. And so I knew there was more we could do. So I saw that opportunity, and like embracing new pathways and traveling new pathways together is a real core value for our team and for you know, our work. And so that was really where things started. I saw the transformative potential and wanted to be part of that. You know, I've never been interested in sort of sitting back and on the sidelines. Like, I'd rather disrupt than be disrupted. And so this was, I guess, disrupting myself a little bit. But we started by reaching out to folks we trust, and folks who I could feel really vulnerable with. You know, one of our other core values at Blueprint and Nearlake is like radical openness and honesty. And so we reached out to a handful of folks, including North Forge, and said, like, we are trying something really new. We don't know how it will work. Will you try it with us? And at the end of the day, my commitment I really felt it was a commitment I could keep, was that like no matter what, we would deliver value, we would help them learn along with us around what AI could mean in the workplace. We would ensure that they, got strategic plans that were really representative of the purpose and impact they wanted to make. So we set that path, and it was the hardest path I've ever traveled. Like, honestly, last year was so tough. Like, I get emotional thinking about it. We were working with 5 organizations, trying something new. And for myself, like, I'm 45. I'm a consultant. I have a team. I'm supposed to be at a stage of life where I'm an expert in what I do. And I was like actively taking a path where I was second guessing everything I'd ever known or told people I knew, and doing that in front of people, often in front of a room of 10 to 20 people. So that was really tough, and it demanded a lot of the team from a like business owner perspective too. It was like a financial investment I was making personally, and a reputation, like a reputational, you know, leap I was taking as well. So I guess like what those were some of the challenges, and like I think tough lessons. We were really guided by our values, and I'm really glad we were, because like I'll tell you, it was just last week actually, I was sitting down with Drew Fisher, who's the CEO of Winnipeg Convention Center, RBC Convention Center, and another group that we worked with in the pilot. And like we learned some hard lessons working together, and it was so wonderful. I sat down with him, and he was just like, I just wanted to reach out and say, like, look at where you are, look at what you're doing. And like, I'm so glad we were a part of that. And that's like insane and amazing. And I feel like really grateful and supported. But that's what happens when you move through challenges and work hard and do that in an open way with others, because it really became something not that we were doing, but that we were all doing together.
And we appreciate on North Forge, you said, was part of the pilot, and the staying true to your values, right? You guys stayed true to your values, and if something was brought that wasn't as part of that, it was steering it back towards like you guys knew who you were and what you wanted to be, right? And so you stayed true to that, which was amazing.
Yeah. Even when it's real hard.
Absolutely. And that's that. I mean, and when it's people that you know and you try, like in that, right, to be able to be like, no, this is what we're doing, and this is why we're here, right? And to be able to draw that line can be quite difficult, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think like, I mean, those were some of the challenges that like we faced just from like diving into that space and testing and developing a tool. I mean, I think what I really appreciated and learning from that experience was like it was such a rich time of learning. Like we learned so much. It was like deeply engaging. I could probably for the rest of my life will recall in detail a lot of last year, because it was just so engaging and demanding on every level. And I think that is what's a really interesting part of like the tech community, is that like it's a community that's just about experimentation, that's not afraid to fail. In fact, like where failing is an actual part of the work, and where I think like that, radical honesty is a value that I see more of, because you have to be in order to build something great. And so that's been a really special part for me of getting to know the tech community. And there's been many other challenges, and me is like not being part of that community, coming into that community, that were less awesome, but that was a really great part of it. Yeah.
So you say, and there's a number of different individuals in this room today. Not everyone's a tech founder, right? Not everyone has a technical background. I do not have a technical background at all. I just have, I'm in it. I'm learning it as we go, just kind of like yourself. But as a non-technical woman leading in tech, what, outside of some of the disruption components, what has been your biggest challenge as a woman leading in tech?
Yeah. It's an interesting question. Like I was just talking actually with our CTO a little bit about this yesterday. I've run a business for 15 years, and when I started that journey, there was challenges of just like entering an environment that I didn't know. I didn't study business, but I knew deeply the challenges of the clients that I wanted to serve and how to help them. And that's where I sort of started from. And when I started in business, generally there were barriers, and I found some of them to be the same in tech, although maybe some nuances that were a bit amplified. Like, oh man, this industry really loves its like jargon and being like slightly inaccessible, frankly, in lots of ways. Like, just trying to understand the language of navigating business in this space was really challenging for me. And it's hard not to step into that and feel a little bit like, do I know what I'm doing? And so, you know, those were some of the little nuances. Some of the bigger nuances were like differences in type of business. So I work in, Blueprint is a professional services firm. And so some of the legal setup, some of the like just corporate considerations are quite different than working in tech, where you're dealing with sort of a more complicated shareholder landscape and fundraising landscape. So those were all challenges, but I can say like there were some really amazing guides through that. And again, like coming back to, what I said before about like knowing what I can do and do very well and sort of doubling down on that, and then where I'm looking for help and support. And so certainly, having a co-founder who had spent some time in tech was very helpful, and who has a very different skill set than my own was helpful. But like I would say more importantly in some ways was like the network that I was introduced to through my nonprofit network and from the tech ecosystem. So Mary Lobson, for example, I don't know if folks know her. She's the founder of Rees. She led a nonprofit for many years in Manitoba that was focused on supporting survivors of sexual violence, domestic violence, and she's the founder of now like a platform, a software platform that's working globally. So like that mattered. Like I thought about Mary so many times because it made me feel like someone who was approaching tech development from a purpose-driven perspective, which she was. Like that was even possible. And I remember, having a chat with her early on where she was just navigating early days. And so that was inspiring. The network and support provided by like North Forge, not just in willingness to try with us, but to provide really exceptional feedback, to provide programming support. Like we we had the chance to work through the program at North Forge, including the IP Elevate program, which like has created value in our business that allowed us to attract like some patient investors early on because there was already value being created in the business. And then the support of, folks like Tech Manitoba, MTA, and now combined into Manitoba Innovates. Like we have space there. We're part of a support program they have there that's allowing us to have access to some of the most exceptional, talent we have in this market around development. So, those things were all part of, I think, what has helped, but it was a real challenge, like feeling like an outsider, both as new to industry and then as like a woman approaching this with like a purpose-driven mindset. And I had to shift my own thinking around that a little bit to really remind myself that like I was the primary investor here. I knew my client base. I had a proven access to market. Like I had, you know, the trust of a market segment that I could access and learn with and learn from. And those are all extremely valuable in the context of a startup and a tech startup. And yeah, so sometimes when I was in the room and talking to, folks, and they assumed that Matt was the sort of in charge of things, that was, I had feelings about that. And also, Matt and I connected about that a lot, and um, just recognized that, like, we're going to do what we're going to do to get done what we needed to get done. But those are hard moments. And I feel much more confident now, and I feel very motivated to help other women navigating the same space, just like I got to look at Mary Lobson ahead of me.
So inclusivity really, really matters, and Matt's a great proponent for you and he would stand by you to be like, nope, Michelle's running the show, like this is, and I know him quite well for that. But a lot of leaders talk about building an inclusive culture, and you've done so well with it, and knowing your team, and knowing all of your openness. But with those leaders that talk about building it, but what does that actually look like in practice, right? How do you manage to ensure that every team member that you have feels heard and empowered? Because we want to ensure across the board, right, that everyone has that representation and that their voices are heard.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like, the news is for, like, news flash for business is like, if you're not focused on an inclusive team, like, good luck finding the talent that you want, that you're going to need for the future. And when I hear business owners, challenged with team, yeah, I have questions about their approach to team culture. And culture is really important in our work and what we do. And I don't mean like it's blue jean Friday kind of culture. I really mean, like, how do we solve problems together? What does that look like in practice? What are the behaviors that we practice to cultivate a space that everyone can feel part of? Because that's smart business sense. And it's smart, like, human sense. And I think, like, I've approached the work I do with, always in terms of our services at Blueprint with clients, always from I sort of say, like, a stakeholder informed strategy, always, which means listen. It means, like, actively listen to what's underneath the surface, ask questions, and be curious, because the more you know and understand, the better your solutions will be, and the more open to collaboration you are. So when we look at, like, inclusive culture and what does that mean, to me, it starts with listening. Um, and then from there, you are already in a better position to move forward in a better way. So definitely active listening. Like, secondly, I think inclusive culture is about recognizing that we bring our personal and professional selves to work. That is who we are. And so you have to think about what that means in the context of life and work. I experienced that in my, in raising kids, like, and now with, parents who are aging, and I know lots of other folks in that space where you need some flexibility to deal with those things. So, we've really doubled down on using, like, sort of the tools we need to be very efficient and effective at work to create the trust in the team so that we can support each other, because sometimes we need to deal with things outside of our day-to-day work, and flexibility is key there. But it's flexibility with accountability, and that's part of that culture as well. And I know, like, sort of coming into today, I think that, like, I was reflecting with the team a little bit about this, and I know, like, for members of our team, being able to be part of a diverse team and to be able to, like, for folks, when you're looking at, like, do I want to be part of this organization, going onto their website and seeing women of color as part of that team can be a big indicator that, that is maybe a place that's going to be a better fit for me or build confidence. I think too, like being able to think about all of the different, like the experience of being part of a team where there are folks with different experiences, different walks of life, different stages and seasons of life, where it's like really not all one thing. And we all have different communication styles. It helps us solve problems, in a more creative way. And in a way, we practice doing that in a way that everyone feels respected and welcome to share their thoughts and ideas. So we're all on equal footing, whether that's in decision making and problem solving, or in access to learning tools, and equal access to learning tools. So those are some of the ways we approach that.
To kind of switch gears here,
Yeah.
so some great stuff around leadership, but now with Nearlake and AI, so we know that adoption for that can be quite overwhelming, right? Especially for leaders new to technology, as you stated. So, with your experience, what kind of advice would you have for those struggling to integrate new tools into their organizations? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, whether you're a leader or a team member, I mean, we know that people are using AI, if not explicitly in their workplaces because it's allowed, they're doing it off the side of their desks because they're overwhelmed and overworked, and they're looking for any tools they can to help them get the work done in a good way. So I think like encouraging your workplace to, like, at minimum, like go in, sign on to like the federal government has like a sort of framework for AI use. We have one that we share, and if people are interested in it, like that's part of the resources we share all the time. If you go to nearlake.com, you can sign up and we'll send you those things, but put a framework in place around what AI use looks like. And then I like start small, find like one or two ways of using it, or as we say in technology, use cases, um, and try it. Find the champions within your workplace. Share those learnings, because once there are some like concrete aha moments of like, oh wow, look what I was able to do, that's the kind of momentum building that happens. And we've been doing, members of the team, Jill and Liz, who's been leading a lot of this work, with Pam as well, doing some work around just basic, introduction to AI assessments in workplaces to get people motivated and connected. Those are some of the starting points. And then from there, really fostering a culture of curiosity. And this is part of like, this isn't a tool, it's a mindset change. It's why, like at Blueprint as a consulting firm, we always deal with those change processes, whether it's strategy or implementing change within an organization. And it's about a mindset change where we're cultivating curiosity and continuous improvement. On a concrete basis, we talk about and we surface challenges or that we're having and ways we can use like basic AI to help in our weekly meetings. We have dedicated, channels to talk about that in our teams. It's become part of our ongoing process. And like, honestly, that was also a shift like that Blueprint itself went through. As much as like I'm an entrepreneur in a professional services firm, we were working flat out, like all the hours, all the time, and we had to make a shift, and we did. And now, 20 to 25% of every team member's time is dedicated to research and learning, because that curiosity is what will keep us moving forward and help us continue to embrace what AI can do for us, because it is continuously evolving. So that has been so like super gratifying for me to see as a business owner, to see my team like teaching each other and learning from each other and teaching me, and vice versa. So you have to start small, put a safe framework around it, and then encourage that culture of curiosity, because the returns come. We see like anywhere from 30 to 40% increases in efficiency in most areas of our work since implementing those practices, which is insane. And then that time is time that is easier to give back to team for, you know, personal, family, like the commitments that need their attention too.
I like that you stated people are doing it anyways, right? People are doing it off the side of their desk, whether you've got the framework, and we as North Forge, we had been utilizing, you know, AI, and, you know, whether it's chat GPT or whatever. But then when we came through the pilot, is okay, now let's have a policy around it.
Yeah.
How can you use it and how can you not, right? So for those, do not just copy and paste something from ChatGPT and use it as your own. Do not do that. You know, just those things that you think are intuitive, but until someone, you know, understands it, you're like, oh, I understand more and what's expected of me when I'm using it.
Yeah. And honestly, like I was in a session with a team yesterday, and like one of the ethical use guidelines that we adhere to is disclosure. So, you know, talking about when we're using it, and we've made a decision as a firm. So again, on the Blueprint side, to, you know, really take an AI forward stance. Frankly, I think the entire professional services industry is using AI in some way, shape, or form. I don't think they're always disclosing, but that's part of our commitment to ethical use and to help with adoption, because we know that adoption is low in Canada, and especially low, frankly, among women. And we see that in the conversations we're having, because when we're disclosing, it forces a conversation about like, how do we feel about that use? And it's not a, you know, as I'm sure you all, you know, have the experience, whether it's in your own families or within yourselves, AI use is raising a lot of questions. And, you know, we've made a decision as a team that we're going to do everything we can to use AI for good, and, you know, supercharge the impact of nonprofits, of small business. And I saw a question about sort of why that segment. I can share more about that, but that's the decision we've made. There are others in my family who feel very differently about AI. And so like that, and that's okay. We're all, you know, individuals and have our own journey there, but we're committed to having those conversations, to talking about what ethical use and safe use looks like, and to being at the forefront of what's unfolding, so that we can help translate that into what, you know, our team needs to know, our clients need to know, what we need to know on the product side on Neuralake as well.
Maybe talk a little bit more about Neuralake and in its full capacity. We do have a question here about kind of what's the main difference between Blueprint and Neuralake, and you've mentioned a couple different components to each of them, but maybe a little bit more to what is Neuralake?
Yeah, for sure. So like Blueprint is a consulting firm, which means we go in, we work with organizations to really implement change, whether that's from a plan they need for the organization, you know, all the way down to more specific operational things. But the nature of that work is change. And that work, we do a lot with nonprofits, largely because that's where our experience sort of and passion came from in working with purpose-driven organizations. And so that's part of the reason why we looked at that segment for Neuralake, but also because it's an underserved segment. You know, and frankly, I've been looking at the challenges with strategic planning for 15 years, and it was only when Gen AI really became more broadly available that there were solutions that could help bring the cost down and help nonprofits deliver and operationalize plans more cost effectively. And when we talk about nonprofits and small teams, like, again, those are the underserved markets. We're not trying to go head to head with enterprise software where it's like teams of 200 to 2,000. Like, there's solutions already. With Neuralake, it was really about using Gen AI to target this segment that I care about deeply, like small and medium-sized businesses, like 1 to 10, 1 to 100, head count are the backbone of the Canadian economy, and nonprofits are one of the biggest contributors economically and in terms of community impact in this country. That's something I care really deeply about. And so being able to supercharge their impact was my intent all along, and it will continue to be as we continue to innovate and find new solutions for them.
If we jump back to more around women within tech, if you could give one piece of advice to someone stepping into a leadership role in tech, or women stepping into a leadership role in tech, what would it be? You've had a lot of great. I've heard lots of great things that I've been writing down. But what do you think your one big thing would be?
I think like double down on what you know and double down on curiosity about what you don't know. Because I'll say I come from a family where no one is in business. So they all thought I don't know if they thought I was crazy when I started my own business, but they were probably worried for me. Like it was not the sort of safe choice in their mind. But I entered business, but I entered it like truly with the values that I got from my family, which was about service. My I saw my mom and dad be deeply involved in community. I saw them like care deeply about their work. They were both teachers, and I saw the impact that they had in people's lives. And so I think like deep inside me, I was similarly motivated by the idea of service and purpose. And so like for women stepping into new places, new roles, whether that's tech or new leadership roles, like double down on what got you there, because it is what is at your core success, and then be open and curious to what else. And I think over the past year, with Neuralink, there's been times where I second guessed myself, right? And that was part of the intent to like question and be curious. But at the end of the day, my gut, when it relates back to like what is of service and what will help the organizations, the teams that I care about, like get farther, that is what will drive, like, and I believe our whole team feels this way, like that's where the product innovation will come, because it is about service. And for me, that's part of what my core is. And so it's doubling down on that while also having curiosity and like humility, because you don't get everything right ever. And being honest about that, and approaching things with, I'm not going to get everything right, but I'm really going to try my best. Those have been really important for me. So I guess that's a little bit about that, like really service and purpose, whatever that's applied to. Because when I draw on that strength, it really reminds me of why I'm here, and it gives me the confidence I need to ask the question or to stand up and say like, you know what, the next board member we're appointing needs to be a woman, right? And those are the things that actually make lasting difference, not just in my view in the success of a company, but in like the example we set for others.
Krista in the Q&A has a question that's kind of tied in with as you're talking. So you've shared some great values and mindsets. You disrupt instead of being disrupted, your radical honesty. You just talked about humility. Is there any other values or mindsets that have been really important to you in your life, business, maybe that's transferred over?
Yeah. And this one I'll say is the hardest for me, and it's been some hard learnings. And my team has taught me a lot. My current partner taught me a lot. But I think like in my life and experience, like I was always very motivated by wanting to make sure I had independence as a woman. I was married in my early 30s. And like that didn't end in continuing to be married. And through that experience, like I really wanted to make sure I was okay and take care of myself. And I'm really glad for that. And um, I went through on the business side similarly, like endings um, that left me with some scar tissue around like that independence and like I teach my daughters that, like, make sure you can take care of yourself, but I've been slower to come to more of a, together, and I think, like, one of the mindsets or core values that we really practice, at Blueprint and at Near Lake is about, like, forging new paths together, and when I, in my life, have approach things with, yes, like confidence in my ability to take care of myself and an openness um, to looking at things in a new way with the benefit of more views in. Um, that's really been life changing. That's like where my ex-husband and I are very close friends, and that has made a giant difference in my children's life. That is like having the courage to forge new paths together. That's like when last year in the fall, we got to a point on the pilot for Near Lake where like the dollars run out, being able to come to the team and say, like, this is where we're at, this is the gap we're trying to shoot. And then seeing that team steps into that space with ideas for how we shoot the gap. And so like that having like being independent and vulnerable and holding those things together to say, how might we solve this challenge together? Um, is the hardest for me and also has been one of the most enriching in my life personally and professionally and continues to be. And honestly, I can't wait to see what happens next with the women I work with, the men I work with, the diverse group. Um, they are a younger generation than me, and like there is nothing that is going to stop them. And I'm so pumped for the path that we're forging together.
That's amazing. It kind of comes a little bit with this question around ambitious, right? And being ambitious. And sometimes it's great knowing when to move forward, when to pivot. But how do you decide when you go all in on a big idea and when to maybe just step back and adjust?
Well, I think, whew, I mean, actually I'm just seeing in the chat sort of a question about like the cycle it takes, has it gotten faster? And I actually think that is a bit of how I have approached things, and that cycle is faster. I think I know I'm never afraid to take the leap because I am always listening. I am always looking for the problem to be solved. And so like and you have to at some point rely on your experience and your knowledge to help guide you. And again, like I didn't go to business school, but I definitely have learned something from 15 years of working with clients who keep coming back and with a client base that's growing. So it's like trusting that. And when your gut is saying like there is something here, do it. Make sure you're prepared to do it, right? Like make the smart choices so you're prepared, right? Don't put yourself completely at risk. You know, I make decisions when I've done the work to make sure financially there's like support to make that happen, or family support to make that happen. But take the leap, but know when to assess and make decisions. So like concretely, I'll say like when we ran and said like we're going to run this pilot, and we knew when the sort of endpoint would be where it was like we will assess and learn and make a decision like, is this going to be a new company? Is this going to be something great? Or is it just going to be a retooling of how we approach consulting? And so it's like run and go with your gut, but know when that sort of stop and assess button is, and do it sooner rather than later. And again, I think like do it as openly as you can too, right? It's don't hold it all back. And that's, again, one of those lessons I continue to learn is like how to articulate where we're at, what help we might need, what might be coming, so that others can step in and assist. So yeah, I don't know if that exactly hits it on the head, but like I do think there's an element of like make sure you're, prepare yourself, then trust your gut and then assess. And yeah, the faster you can run that cycle, and the older I've gotten, the faster that's run. And, the more self-awareness I have, I guess, as well. Bit of a slow learner on that front sometimes, but that's certainly been helpful.
Sometimes it's hard to give ourselves the space, right, to do so.
Yeah. I think all of like my kids, my partner, my family, my team probably knows a lot more about me than I do. I'm still learning, but I'm thankful to them for teaching me so that I can do better at what I'm good at and stop trying to do the things I'm really terrible at.
Well, it's always you hire smarter people. You don't want to be the smartest person in the room, right? You want everyone, the rest of your team, to excel in what they're great at and to balance your skills out, right?
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I'm curious, Whitney, is it okay if I ask you a question? I mean, it's okay. You can say, Pat,
Turner.
You work with, lots of folks with North Forge. I don't know how many women you work with in this context, but like, what do you observe in terms of the mindsets or values that you think are guiding women in this space? Is there anything that I'm reflecting that sort of resonates in that way, or anything I maybe haven't touched on that the group would find helpful?
I think you're really nailing it on the head with a lot of the insights that you shared, because I've seen some things in chat with, oh my gosh, that resonated with me, and I feel you, and in the Q&A, and people, whether working in tech or just being an entrepreneur and having to almost proving yourself as you're going along the way when maybe counterparts don't have to do as much. I think that all resonates, and it's something that we're all, we all, the group here feel, right? So I think that's something that we're trying to, and that I think slowly is being removed, right? You see more women in leadership roles. As I look around, I mean, we're in the nonprofit space. You look around at a lot of the heads of the associations. You have Tech Manitoba, you have Bioscience Association Manitoba, you have North Forge, WeMB, you have Research Manitoba, all of these amazing organizations being led by women, strong women, right? And so I think that the see it, be it, and as you talked about with Mary, right, that's so strong and is so needed. So whether we can get that equity across the board, I think that would be such a great support for women to continue to move forward.
No, absolutely. And it's been like really fun actually in contemplating this event. I'm happy to be here chatting, but it's like also like Liz Cron, like Michelle Gazzi, Jill McCallum, Rajmi Borgola on my team. Like these are all women in tech and leaders in tech. And it's like I said, I'm just super excited to see what is ahead of them, because they are an insane force altogether, and supported by like an incredible bunch of colleagues who happen to be men and who are equally as committed to like equity and moving the needle as we are. And it's a different environment. I was talking to our CTO yesterday, and he was just saying, because he's a like part-time consultant, he's just like, not all teams are like this, and we just need to help more teams be like this. And so, that's where we're happy to be at events like this. And, wherever we can share that message is super important from my perspective.
Absolutely. You have a rock star group of individuals, women and men. Like your whole team is just unreal and so great to work with. And we have been chatting away here, and I'm just looking at the time, and it's just about 1 o'clock. Like we can chat all day, of course. But thank you, Michelle, for being open with us, for coming along this journey with Manitoba Women in Tech, and sharing your insights, your thoughts, and advice for the next, tranche of individuals coming up. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I appreciate everybody who came today. I was nervous. And I felt a lot more comfortable. Whitney, thank you for making me feel comfortable too. And I really would encourage everyone, if you want to stay just connected to what we're doing, because we are trying to create more of a co-creator community with Mirror Lake, and just stay up to date as we grow, as we learn. Please do stay with us. I know folks shared some links and stuff in the chat, but it would be a real privilege to have you with us.
Absolutely. I see Liz and Michelle have shared some fantastic resources. So Blueprint, Mirror Lake's in there. The federal government code that you talked about is in there. So everyone, please stay connected with Michelle. She's on LinkedIn as well. Even though she may not be a huge adopter of it, she'll get there. She'll accept it. Go from there. This is going to be kind of our time on this side of things. We're going to jump back. I'm going to give about 10 minutes for some networking, just in case anyone has questions that they want to come and chat with you about that they may not have been able to get in here. But thank you, everyone. For the Manitoba Women in Tech side, keep your eyes peeled on our meetup group for our April event. We'll be posting that shortly. And thank you, everyone, so much for joining us. Michelle, again, thank you. It's always wonderful to chat with you. But I am going to stop the recording, stop presenting, and we'll jump back to networking. So take care, everybody.
Bye, everyone.